How and why you thought of this village?
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially an educational project, an experiment in sort of trying to see what kind of entrepreneurship is possible in Kashmir. So I happened to live outside for a while. I spent some 15, 20 years outside, traveled to some 18 different countries, and that journey sort of helped me realize, the limitations that we grow up with when we grow up in Kashmir, given the context we grow up in, given our socialization, our educational system. And like all Kashmiris, I was always thinking about coming back to Kashmir, and whenever something would inspire me or I would get my attention, I would want to replicate it in Kashmir, and I was always thinking about how it would help back in Kashmir. So anyway, by 2009, I was on a path. Part of me was on a path to sort of settle down. I had made some progress in my career. My livelihood was settled. But then there was this part of me which was getting more and more restless about, is this all, or is there something more to life? And I was thinking about the purpose of life and exploring those questions, and then also trying to think of ways and means to come back and live with my family in Kashmir. So finally in 2009, I decided to quit my work life outside of Kashmir and return to Kashmir. And I came back with a mission to help other younger people basically share what I had learned and what I had realized about the limitations I was talking about, that we grow up with. So invariably what happens is people end up choosing security over creativity. That's what happens to most people in this context. I think it's a global phenomenon to a large extent, but particularly in Kashmir. So I wanted to share my learning and those ideas with younger people here, that to help them understand the context we live in and how we can be more productive and how we can take charge of our lives and be as productive as possible and make best use of the resources we have got. So that's the mission I gave myself, and I came back in 2010 finally to Kashmir. So I started a non-profit called Mool Sustainability Research and Training Center, and because I had mostly worked in bilateral organizations, government organizations and NGOs while I was outside. Although I had studied business, I had done an MBA, but I had never really done business. So I had this frame of non-profit. So I started a non-profit, and through that I generated some resources to do a participatory action research project with youth here in Kashmir. So we went around almost all districts of Kashmir, Jammu and Ladakh, talking to young people, academia and intelligentsia, journalists and people who were doing any kind of research, and NGOs, about the issues that young people were faced with and the dreams and aspirations they had, and what was coming in the way of, what was stopping them from realizing them. Although I had my own life experience, but I was sort of sharing my experience and then getting ideas from young people. So, and that exercise, turned into a visioning exercise after the first few years. Then we sort of, because there were lots of challenges that people were talking about, given one, the contextual challenges that we face, but then also low quality of education and lack of meaningful livelihood opportunities and all of that. But then to follow that up, we decided to do a visioning exercise, which is to imagine the kind of society we want to live in and what role would we play in that society. So that exercise generated quite a few interesting sort of insights. So people would often talk about coexistence, collaboration, dignity, trust, freedoms, responsibilities, ability, self-sufficiency, and things like that. And a lot of people were also talking about, land-based initiatives, environment-friendly initiatives. People were feeling that we are losing our culture and things like that. And a lot of people were also writing about these ideas, but we did not see any practical initiative in Kashmir. There were some examples in Ladakh, people were trying alternatives, and in other places also outside of Kashmir, but not in Kashmir. So because we were realizing this, we sort of gave that challenge to ourselves to start something like that, what we were learning. So we wanted to experiment with that. So that's how Sagg came into being. So Mool, again, roots in Kashmiri, and Sagg, watering the roots, nurturing the roots. So that's how the connotation is sort of in our minds. So we started Sagg as a for-profit initiative, because for-profit enables you to do a broader experiment. So that's how Sagg was sort of started.
Good. What is the unique thing about it? What is the unique thing?
The unique thing, in my understanding, is the whole experience. But uh, we, in our context, one of the challenges we face is the disintegration of life. For example, there are every little thing has become an expertise, and people have lost sort of this sight of this overall general understanding of life, of a holistic lifestyle. So, for example, our education, we have separated. Our health, we have to go to some people for our health, to some other people for our education, to some other people for our farming, to some other people for our livelihood. So it's there's and this disintegration actually seeps into very deep levels. For example, if we have a tree, and there are experts for fixing the roots of the tree, there are experts for fixing the stem of the tree, there are experts for leaves and experts for fruit and all of that. So that, and expertise is good. I mean, it certainly pushes forward our understanding and ability, but expertise devoid of a general understanding of the whole structure can be detrimental. For example, if somebody is only focused on the leaves of the tree and he only treats the leaves of the tree, the treatment of the leaves might be detrimental for the roots. So we have to have the understanding of the holistic thing. So the unique thing for Sagg is we are trying to build an integrative and regenerative lifestyle. So where all our needs and resources are sort of integrated in a way and manner that is, one, sustainable, but not only sustainable, but regenerative as well. Yeah.
Good. So another question is, how can people volunteer for it?
Well, there are several ways people can contribute. One, it's sort of, as I said, an educational project. So it's an ongoing research, experimental project. So it's also people who come here, for example, they get a detailed tour of the village, so they see all elements. So that's the sort of first level of engagement. But then people who are interested to explore more, we can help them understand the processes behind the operation. We can help them build or replicate any of this anywhere. We can educate them in why, in the systemic understanding of things. But then we have also designed and developed programs to coach people and to train people in ecological entrepreneurship. So we can actually help people design businesses that are environmentally and culturally friendly. And then, and more importantly, I would say, from this experience has sort of given us some significant insights into what kind of mindset is required to become an entrepreneur in a difficult context like Kashmir. So we can really help with that. But in other ways that people can contribute is, if somebody has an idea to share or to sort of reflect on, we can help do that. People, if they have a talent or a skill that they want to showcase, we have a platform for that, we can help do that. Or if people are facing generally any challenges, any problems about finding, for example, the right career or the right business, or need help in establishing or doing any undertaking any such venture, so that is another way to sort of engage with us. In addition, we have opportunities for volunteers and interns to work on various aspects of our business, which we have recreational services and spaces. We have food processing and natural farming areas, and we also are into education, as I was saying. So people can volunteer in those areas also. They can do. We also get a lot of volunteers who live here. We cover their food and stay, and they work in return in our farm or in other places.
Okay, what are the ways in which it is sustainable?
Well, the idea is for the whole thing to be not only sustainable but regenerative, which number one, I mean, if we take different elements, one, it is ecologically friendly. So we sort of, for example, in our farming, which it is natural farming, no inorganic additives. We have our own composting program. Even, I mean, I'm not sure if you saw, we have composting toilets. Yeah. So we're also sort of, and we prefer to use those, although we have flush toilets as well, but we encourage people to try our hygienic compost toilets. And so that's one, for example, natural farming, composting program. We have an upcycling program. All the plastic we get, or we also sometimes have to buy things like rubber tires, because we try to sort of upcycle them and make useful artifacts from them, maybe toys, maybe lampshades, maybe flower pots, and we also try to use them in construction or pavements. So there are different kinds of so that's upcycling. So ecologically friendly, then culturally friendly, because I think for any place, if you want to live in the best way possible, cultural wisdom holds all the secrets of living in that space. So unfortunately, what has happened over the last 20-30 years, there's this copy-paste culture, and we unfortunately have sort of pasted outside templates on our culture, which sort of disconnected us from our own environment. So we are sort of trying to uphold, bring in the cultural wisdom again, and trying to sort of package our natural cultural resources with today's sort of standards of how do you say it, hygiene, or acceptable standards of packaging, or there are these, for example, for food there are these FSSAI requirements, there are, so that those kinds of things. We are taking for example, our local herbs, processing and packaging them in a way that is acceptable in today's environment, and connecting it, bringing it back to people, so people get the benefit of that natural sort of produce and cultural sort of wisdom with today's acceptable standards. So that's the cultural aspect, and then I talked about the ecological aspect. And in terms of people who are involved here, invariably, if you look at the kind of work we do and the people we engage here, I mean, all of the structures that have been built here have been built by mostly by the material that has been sourced from this piece of land. We have broken all the rocks here, and all the structures have been built by the rocks that were broken here, and all of them were built by local artisans, local people, and were not used any machines. As you know, we don't have a road access to this piece of land, so no machines, and we use mud plaster again from the same space, and we use a lot of wood again, that's local. So we try to minimize imports in that sense also. So we're trying to sort of, as much as possible, make it absolutely a localized economic venture that not only uses input, local input, but also produces benefits with its output as well.
Okay, are you depending on donations?
For the business, no. Because as I said, we started a non-profit when I came back, Mool Sustainability Research and Training Center, and at that point we sort of collaborated with other NGOs and generated some resources for that work. And Mool still works, and we still work with in the non-profit paradigm for some projects with Mool. But for Sagg Eco Village, it's absolutely a business, and so far privately funded and privately built.
Okay, so my last question is, what is the response so far?
Alhamdulillah, response is great. I mean, it's anybody who comes here is first of all surprised by that something like this exists, and somebody is crazy enough to try something like this, and then excited, and people invariably are very happy and I mean, this space has an automatic effect on people, because that is what nature and culture does to you. I mean, it sort of de-stresses you, and you automatically sort of get into this mode of connectivity with yourself, and the conversations automatically shift from the day-to-day struggles to deeper sort of reflective conversations. So we encourage a lot of NGOs and businesses to organize their team retreats here, because this space has that kind of impact. So the response, alhamdulillah, has been great. It's very exciting, and as I was saying, we were sort of ready with this infrastructure in 2018, but then we were unable to take off. 2019, 2021 sort of really didn't happen. But this year we have decided to sort of take off anyway, despite the turbulence. But and the response so far has been great. I mean, these last few months have been very busy, and we have seen a lot of interest and appreciation. And alhamdulillah, it's great. Thank you. Yeah.
So it was nice talking to you, Fayaz bhai. You're doing a great job.
Pleasure.
And thank you for giving your precious time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.